Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James, joined once again by my co-host Cody. Cody, how you doing this fine Friday evening?
Oh, James, I am just fantastic. Gonna be starting my new job next week. Gotta go drop off my work vehicle in San Antonio tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. I gotta be there, so I gotta leave at like 6:50. Actually, that's a good thing. I gotta look at where I gotta drop that off at. Anyways, I'm doing good, James. How are you doing?
Good. Don't forget to talk into the mic, Cody. We lost you for a moment there.
Yeah. I always feel like I gotta explain just more than I need to. I just kind of talk. That's okay.
Hey, man, it's all I know is that we're going into another weekend here where I feel kind of optimistic about the possibility of a positive result going into the game. But before we get too far into this, we've got November to talk about. Steelers by the Lakes November numbers, to be specific. Starting off with the top downloaded states for us. Last month, number 1, big surprise, Pennsylvania. Number 2, Texas, Cody's new home state, Texas.
Let's go. I have handed our cards out a few places, so
yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
must be helping. Number 3, Colorado. Number 4, Florida, and number 5, Ohio.
Ohio falling off the top leaderboard there. They've normally been 1 or 2 quite consistently. So yeah, that's exciting. Looking at the countries, top 3 countries we're going to talk about today. Number 1, USA. Here we go, World Cup, because we don't care about because we care about football and y'all call it football, so go USA. Anyways, number 2 is Canada. And then number 3 is the UK. So,
yeah.
Woohoo. I wish they broke that up a little bit.
Fun, man.
We'll take it.
Yeah. So don't forget, if you have a option to do so, or if you don't sign up for it, Pro Bowl voting has begun. Minka Fitzpatrick leading early on here in the free safety category for top free safety in the NFL. Nice to see that he's getting that kind of recognition as far as the public vote of opinion at this point in time. Hopefully he'll get right back into that Pro Bowl after having 1 year off from it. I think there's a few Steelers ought to be in it this year. But I don't think any from the offensive side, maybe.
If anything, if he has a big second half of the year, Pat Freiermuth, if anything. It'd have to be a pretty explosive second half.
Yeah, I think probably the closest right now is Najee, just because he has 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But nobody else is really putting up big numbers yet. But yeah, I agree if Freiermuth has a big second half and most importantly gets a number of touchdowns, because that's where he's really, his numbers aren't bad right now. He just only has 1 touchdown on the season. Pickens too. If Pickens goes off and gets like 5 touchdowns in the second half, you never know. He might sneak into it. But I think that's our 3 best hopes on offense is Najee, Freiermuth, and Pickens. On defense, though, I do believe that Minka should have some people in there with him. I think Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward are both deserving of going with him this year. And if TJ can keep pouring it on, you never know. Maybe TJ gets enough votes too, just based off of clout and whatnot. I mean, in the short amount of time he's played, he's got like 2 interceptions, a couple forced fumbles, and it's only like 3 games he's played. So
yeah.
It's high quality, but he seriously needs to put a bunch of sacks up to have any chance.
Yeah, so with the win that Pittsburgh had last Monday night against the Indianapolis Colts, or this previous Monday night, whatever, Mike Tomlin is now 19-3 on Monday night football games, which is a fantastic record. And Pittsburgh actually ties San Francisco for the most Monday night wins in league history, which is also pretty interesting. I believe that number is 56, if I'm not mistaken. I'm 90% sure it's 56. So yeah, really cool for both Mike Tomlin and Pittsburgh Steelers. With that being said, you got something.
That 19-3 is second best in NFL history for any head coach on Monday night.
Followed by, or only behind who?
I think it was like Ditka or somebody only had 1 loss. He was like 11-1 or something.
Dang. He didn't even play enough games.
There's only one
count.
coach, and whoever it was only like 11-1, and the win percentage is close enough that if Tomlin gets a couple more wins, he's going to pass him. So
nice, very nice. And I think we'll definitely have more Monday Night Football games with Tomlin behind the helm. I don't see him going anywhere in the next few years unless he decides to hang it up, which
Which I don't think he's going to.
I don't think so either, but again, you never freaking know. But this week we play the Atlanta Falcons, so we're going to talk about that real quick. Atlanta Falcons injury report and Steelers injury report. Now, the Steelers injury report is extensive. You have a bunch of guys, however, that are full participation and limited participation for practice. I'm going to go over the guys. James, do you want me to do Steelers and you do Falcons?
That's fine.
Okay, so real quick, the guys that were limited participation on Friday. Najee Harris with the oblique injury. You also had TJ Watt with a rib injury. He's been limited all week, probably just taking time off. He's listed questionable for the game, but more than likely will play because it's freaking TJ Watt. And then Isaiah Loudermilk didn't participate at all, and neither did Akilla Witherspoon. Isaiah Loudermilk with a personal injury, and Akilla Witherspoon with the hamstring injury as well. Akilla Witherspoon will be out again this week. That is the only person that has a game status as out so far. Now, the rest of these guys have been full participation on Friday. Should be a go, more than likely, for Sunday. Minkah Fitzpatrick with a rib injury, Robert Spillane with an oblique injury, Miles Jack with a knee injury, Mason Cole with a foot injury. Again, we saw him leave last game and not come back in. Larry Ogunjobi with a toe injury was full participation on Friday. Again, wide receiver Miles Boykin, which is great for our special teams. And James loves to talk about that. Jalen Warren, full participation, but listed as questionable. And then also Benny Snell with a knee injury. And then Cameron Hayward with that contusion to the birth certificate. So
that's a rough one.
That's the hardest one to deal with. It is.
Yeah, tough to overcome. That doesn't really heal up from one week to another.
It does not. It kind of gets worse.
Yeah, pretty much. So like Cody said, really the only person officially ruled out Akilla Witherspoon, but Jalen Warren and TJ Watt both listed as questionable, which means everybody else they're pretty much expecting to play. I am hearing that Jalen Warren is probably a little bit more than questionable.
Yeah.
He's probably very likely to play. And I guess we'll kind of see as far as this is Najee Harris, man. I mean, I don't know, man. That today was the first day that he actually practiced. Today being Friday when we're recording, of course. And he was limited today, and he didn't practice all week up until then. So that does concern me a little bit. Obviously, they didn't list him as questionable, which means they're fully expecting him to play. But I wouldn't expect him to be a full – if he does play, if he does dress, I would expect him to probably split snaps pretty evenly between him and the other running backs. And it might be everybody gets a split today.
Yeah.
It might be like he gets a third, Jalen Warren gets a third, Benny Snell gets a third.
Yeah.
But with all three of them being injured, I don't know, man. It almost feels like you might see Anthony McFarland get called up again just because he's the only healthy body in the room.
Yeah.
But no movement on the practice squad this week, so we haven't seen anything yet. We'll see if DeMarvin Leal gets called up before the game. Kind of doesn't look like it. He has until the 7th to be taken off of the IR, or we lose him for the whole season. There hasn't been any rumors of any setbacks. All I've heard is that DeMarvin Leal is going full go in practice. So he seems like he's ready. They're just waiting to see if an injury pops up with somebody that might need to go on IR and make room for him.
Yeah.
On the Falcons side of things, as far as their injuries on Friday, outside linebacker Arnold Ebiketie, formerly of the Penn State Nittany Lions, if that sounds familiar to you, has a forearm injury and was limited in practice. Defensive lineman Jalen Dalton with a toe and was limited. And then offensive lineman Chuma Edoga with a knee injury did not practice. They're calling all three of them questionable. Probably the least likely to play is Chuma Edoga, being that he did not practice at all. Who knows with a forearm injury on a pass rusher? Ebiketie is either a defensive end or outside linebacker, depending on how you classify him in their defense. But pass rusher with a bum forearm, that might not be an easy thing to play with.
Yeah, and then two guys that aren't listed maybe for on your end. Cordarrelle Patterson was not. We're just basically resting. No injury designation, but resting. And then obviously Kyle Pitt, their star tight end, who was recently put on the IR, had to get surgery. So Kyle Pitts will no longer be playing either. So that's going to do it for the injury report. Now it's time to look at the Falcons team as a whole.
Yeah. The list I'm looking at had Cordell Patterson sitting on Wednesday, but practicing Thursday and Friday.
Okay, it was unlisted on
So
mine, so that's weird.
yeah,
Whatever, he
yeah.
practices.
So I think he should be good to go. And honestly, he's a pretty dangerous dude. Somebody they need to keep an eye on. That running back room in general has had a lot of success for the Falcons this year with him, Tyler Algier, Avery Williams, Caleb Huntley. They're all capable running backs, and it's a team that loves to run the ball. So important that Pittsburgh comes to play as far as their run defense. But even at quarterback, Marcus Mariota, a very mobile quarterback. So something that will be a nice dress rehearsal for Pittsburgh with Baltimore coming up a couple times in the future here, and even that final game against the Browns with Deshaun Watson now back. There's some very mobile quarterbacks coming up in the second half. Got to get that push on the inside of the defensive line because we're going to see TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith collapse in the pocket on the outside. If the quarterback's got somewhere to go, you won't get the sacks. If he has nowhere to go because you're getting pushed on the inside, you'll be sacking a guy like crazy. So
Sack City in Atlanta, baby.
It sure would be nice. Wide receiver wise, first round pick Drake London, or was he a second round pick? I don't know. He's
I believe London was
top draft pick.
I believe London was late first round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I know he was a high pick. I don't remember if it was first or second. But he's a starting wide receiver for him, along with Olomide Zacchaeus, and then Carterell Hodges, Demir Bird. These guys are backing him up. So there are some wide receivers, but there's not really a true number one that you got to super worry about, which might be a good matchup for Pittsburgh secondary because that's kind of how their cornerback room is. Not a true number one corner anywhere, a bunch of good number twos. So we might match up well against these guys. Tight end room, they've got 5 dudes listed. They have Kyle Pitts as the number one, obviously. Kyle Pitts, the super talented tight end who is on the injured reserve right now, so we don't have to worry about him. Yeah. Looks like you got something to add.
Drake London, 8th overall pick last year.
Okay, I thought he was a first rounder.
Yep.
Parker Hess, Anthony Ferkser, Michael Pruitt, and Felipe Franks, former quarterback, turned tight end, is the tight end room. So again, with Kyle Pitts out, there's a bunch of dudes. Apparently they love to run 2 tight end sets, and you got a bunch of no names, but Pittsburgh's been struggling stopping tight ends. So very important that they're on top of that. But it's a run heavy team. This could be the kind of game that Robert Spillane kind of excels in. He's got a habit of doing that against heavily running offenses. You want to talk about the offensive line, Cody?
Yeah, let's take a look at this offensive line. From left to right, the starters are Jake Matthews, Colby Gossett, Drew Dahlman at center, Chris Lindstrom, right guard, probably their best offensive lineman, and then Caleb McGarry at right tackle. None of these guys super stress me out. The Chris Lindstrom is probably their best one, but again, if I remember correctly, Lindstrom has only been he's still in his rookie deal. So still fairly young, 26 years old out of Boston College. Good player, good guard. But again, this offensive line doesn't frighten me too much, especially if our defensive front can come out and perform well. Would be super excited to see that. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, defensive front specifically, they run a 3-4, so they're going to have 3 down linemen: Grady Jarrett, Abdullah Anderson, and Taquan Graham. Abdullah Anderson and Grady Jarrett, probably the 2 best defensive line guys they have. Obviously, they're starting, but I'm not super worried about Taquan Graham. Those 2 guys can definitely apply pressure from inside or outside. Abdullah Anderson typically lining up in the middle. And then you look at the 4 linebackers. They have the 2 outside linebackers, Edetakumbo Ogundeji.
Sure. I think you're pretty spot on there, man. That was pretty good.
Thank you, sir. I was like, James is going to make fun of me today. And then Lorenzo Carter on the...
that's the most challenging one on their entire roster. I think you...
That's true. And then Lorenzo Carter on the outside. Lorenzo Carter, if I remember correctly, was a little bit speedy coming out of college. I could be wrong about that. I didn't mean to do what I just did, but he's been in the league 5 years. He's been in the league 5 years now. I can't remember how fast he ran. I'll have to look that up. And then you have the 2 inside linebackers, Rashawn Evans, who's actually fairly good, middle linebacker, and McCall Walker finish up that linebacking core. Now, their secondary is probably the biggest threat minus those 2 defensive linemen. And I only say that because of one guy, AJ Terrell. Specifically, I'm worried about him. I guess I'm not really worried about the other guys, but whatever.
Is AJ Terrell the one that got traded? I feel like he got traded from whoever drafted him to the Falcons.
I don't think so, but I'll double check that while you go over that secondary.
That's somebody else I'm thinking about. So it's him, AJ Terrell at the one side, Darren Hall on the other. Safeties are Richie Grant and Jalen Hawkins. To me, this is a secondary that you might be able to take advantage of. But I think more so with the middle of the field, as there's not a big strength there against the pass.
Drafted by the Falcons.
Okay. I'm thinking of another guy out of Clemson then.
20th overall.
Yeah. Special teams, Cody. We got kicker, your favorite kicker, Young Hoku.
Why is he my favorite kicker?
Because his first name's fun.
Young Ho?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Number 2, Bradley Pinion is the punter. Long snapper, Liam McCullough. Holder, also Bradley Pinion. How weird. It's like the punter's normally the holder. Kick return men, Avery Williams doubles as punt and kick return, and Cordarrelle Patterson at kick return. This is a very good kick return unit.
It is.
So Cordarrelle
Patterson has the most kick return touchdowns in NFL history. So,
which is crazy to me. I thought nobody would ever pass Devin Hester.
He had a longer career.
Never.
He had a longer career. Cordarrelle Patterson. Actually, I'm going to look this up now, because
he's 31 now. He must have been in the league probably 10 years.
Yeah, for real. Let's take a look at this real quick. Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, my God, it must be that Devin Hester had probably a ton of punt returns for touchdowns in his career, not as many kick returns. Yeah, I remember the number he put up was just like stupid. And people used to go off about how good Josh Cribbs was returning kicks and punts. And he was very good, but he didn't even come close to the numbers that Devin Hester put up in his career. Yeah. He was like half as many touchdowns when he got to the end of his career. So it's very impressive that Cordarrelle Patterson would catch the very mighty Devin Hester in kick returns.
Yeah, so looking at careers for both of these guys right now, I'm trying to see. Oh, are you kidding me? They may not have the kick. They're listed as a wide receiver, so they have their wide receiver stats.
No, yeah, you have to go to another category probably to find the kick returns.
I'm looking right now. Kick and punt returns. That's what I want right there. Kick and punt returns. Okay, so both these guys, kick and punt return wise, in their career, I'm gonna give you just the numbers. You got to guess who's who. That'll give it away.
As soon as you say touchdowns,
yeah,
just read them off. We're getting a little too much dead air.
I know. I'm sorry. So one is 1 punt return for 9 yards in his career.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's got to be Cordarrelle Patterson.
He doesn't do punt return. The other one is 315 punt returns for 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, there it is. So that's why I thought nobody would ever catch him.
Yeah, and kick return touchdowns. One of them has 5. One of them has 9. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that Hester only had 5 kick returns for touchdowns.
Yep, it's all the punt return touchdowns for him. So.
14 is insane, though, bro.
14 is what 13 of those were with Chicago for 8 years, and then 1 in Atlanta, and then he played for Baltimore and ironic. Seattle. Yeah, I know, very ironic. Yeah, so the career length for both these guys, Devin Hester was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years. 4, 8, 10
probably
years.
Less for Patterson at this point.
Yeah, he's only 10 years. So, impressive.
Just a better kick return, man. He just didn't do punt returns.
Yeah, which makes sense. So,
I'm almost more surprised that Devin Hester didn't go into the Hall of Fame his first year of eligibility, though.
Oh, I agree. That's shocking to me, especially the first player to ever return an opening kickoff in a Super Bowl for a touchdown.
Was it a Super Bowl?
Yeah. And then they lost.
Nuts. It wasn't his fault.
Nope.
So now that we've got the Falcons roster out of the way, we've got the injury report out of the way, we want to talk to you guys about what we believe our 3 keys to success will be for Pittsburgh to come away from this game with a big W and a little momentum, some back-to-back wins. We're riding on 2 out of the last 3 games being wins right now. Kenny's got 0 turnovers in the last 3 weeks. Don't worry, I just knocked on wood, so we're good on that.
Thank you.
But there's so much momentum going in the right direction. The run game has been tremendous the last 3 weeks. There's a lot of positives to build on off of what's going on right now. So even though the season really doesn't feel great because it's 4-7 right now as a record, I'll feel a little better if Pittsburgh goes 5-7. So I'm going to tell you how they can do it. Number 1 for me, my number 1 key to success. Will the number 3 wide receiver please stand up?
Ooh.
We don't know who it is right now, man. Gunner's trying to win the job. Steven Sims is trying to win the job. Miles Boykin is a better special teamer than either one of them as far as coverage. It kind of looks to me like Steven Sims is probably the leading candidate right now, but I need one of these guys to step up and have a big game and show us that they can be the number 3 receiver down the final stretch here in the rest of this season. So that's my number 1 key. Whoever the number 3 receiver tries to be, I think Steven Sims is the one that should be the most dynamic with the ball in his hands, the best ability to make people miss, quickest and short area, probably the best speed too. So let's see that be Steven Sims, but please stand up, whoever you are, number 3 wide receiver. Number 2, it's like I'm at the Thanksgiving Day dinner, but instead of asking for seconds on stuffings, I want more James Pierre, please. Put some more James Pierre on my plate. I like what I saw out of him last week, reading that play to get the interception. Much better in coverage than what we've seen out of Arthur Mollett. So in the 3rd and long and the heavy passing down situations, I want to see James Pierre out there. So that's my request for number 2 reason on how we can win. Number 3, stop their run game. This team loves to run the ball. We saw a little bit of late game struggles last week against the Colts. They started to get some success running the ball against us. It's going to be exceedingly important in the second half of the season. A lot of run heavy teams with the Ravens a few times. Again, the Browns coming up again. In this Falcons team this week, we have got to be able to stop the run. If you can make them one-dimensional, I like our chances against Marcus Mariota if you force him to pass them.
Yeah, I agree completely. I love those for sure. So my things for this team, my 3 keys to success against the Atlanta Falcons. Number 1, our offense needs to move the ball and control the clock again. When you look at specifically for the Atlanta Falcons, I'm looking at their stats right now as a whole. Total yards wise, they're only at 3,700, almost 39. Their opponents are at 46. Teams that beat them consistently hold the ball longer, have longer drives, things like that. So they need to hold on to these drives. They need to make the drives last time, not go down. Don't get me wrong. I'd be happy if we scored 1 play touchdown every time. But you got to keep our defense off the field to make sure they're rested and come back on. Now, moving to the defensive side of the ball, I think Pittsburgh needs to come out and sack Atlanta heavily. I want to see Pittsburgh leave this game with 4 or 5 sacks. The teams against Atlanta only have 17 sacks. Atlanta as a whole has 27 sacks. So teams haven't been sacking Marcus Mariota very often, which is actually kind of impressive, given the fact that he is a mobile quarterback and sometimes you can kind of rally them a little bit more in the backfield. And then the last thing that I want to look at is I specifically want Pittsburgh to, again, you used this one last week, win the turnover battle. I want to see turnovers again. The turnover ratio for Atlanta is only -1. They're surprisingly a team that if they turn the ball over, they typically get it back. They're not super negative in that turnover ratio. So I want to see Pittsburgh come out and destroy the turnover ratio against this team. And hopefully we have 0 and like giveaways and that we get, our takeaways are 4 or 5. So that's my 3 main things. Again, if you combine even 2 of those, if you combine the turnovers with holding the clock, that typically is the number 1 way to lead a win. I'm curious to see what the record all time would be for teams that won the turnover battle and the clock management. I'm curious what their record would be. So those are my 3 keys to success.
Probably a pretty good record, I bet.
It better be. I would be shocked if it wasn't. So again, thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Subscribe and ring the bell. It is free. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.